is Richard, and this video is an attempt to give you just a little more insight into the types of things that I'll be covering in my Excel training class, and maybe even just a little bit into my philosophy of what makes for good Excel training. I grew up in a little country community outside Humboldt, and my grandfather ran a country grocery store there for a little over 40 years. We called him Pop. Everybody else called him Porter, but he ran that store and he had a good time doing it. And one of the things that I learned from him, one of many, was that if you're going to do something, there's a tool for it and there's a right tool for it. And Pop always used to tell me, boy, we need the right tool. And in my opinion, Excel is the right tool for a lot of jobs, not only number crunching, but just many, many jobs. And my attempt is to take Excel and show you how it can be the right tool for whatever your endeavor might be. As I began to become interested in Excel, there were two people that rose to the forefront that were fantastic instructors, fantastic teachers of Excel. The first one was Bill Jelen. He is Mr. Excel. He runs the website mrexcel.com, and the first book that I bought of Mr. Excel's was Mr. Excel on Excel. And on page 1 of chapter 1, he summed it up beautifully, and I certainly try to incorporate this philosophy into my class. Let me read this to you. Time is money. Give your mouse a break. Is your time valuable? If you're not sure that it is, do not bother reading this chapter. Keep on using the Excel menus and icons to perform common operations. But if you do value your time, this chapter will attempt to convince you to use the keyboard instead. That is very powerful and very, very true. Well, a big believer and a big follower of Mr. Excel is this gentleman, Mike Gervin. Mike Gervin is a junior college instructor in a little school in Washington State, and he has spent several years teaching statistics and all kinds of business classes using nothing but Excel. And he, in conjunction with Mr. Excel, published this book, Slaying Excel Dragons. And I'd like to read for you what Mr. Excel, Bill Jelen, has said about Mike's book. Mike, through his students, has contact every day with dozens of people who might be struggling through their first experiences with worksheets. Because of this, Mike has a unique perspective into the dragons that make Excel seem so intimidating. That's important. Mike knows where things can go awry and where things can become very confusing, and his book does a fabulous job of helping you to avoid these dragons and probably even more importantly how to dominate in Excel and overcome these dragons. And his book will be our textbook in my basics class. The very first resource I used to learn Excel was this book, Excel 97 One Step at a Time. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you go out and buy this book, although as you can see, I'm going to click on this and it'll open up the website that's still currently selling this book, and you can get it for $4. It's teaching you an older version of Excel and not the version that you'll want to learn. But the great thing I did learn about this through this book was that it came with a CD and you had to complete exercises. So Excel is the type of thing that you have to learn by doing. The other great resource that I use in continuing to learn a lot about Excel is through the book that Mike Gervin has produced, but more importantly through his YouTube website. If you go to YouTube and do a search for Excel is Fun, what you'll come up with is his channel that has over 1,800 instructional videos. You see over here it shows 1,800 Excel how to do videos. The most recent one that he's put up as of today's date is an Excel Magic Trick 907. It has something to do with Excel Calendar, and he has 4 examples of that. But many, many fantastic resources here. Then, of course, there's Mr. Excel and his book, which is the book that I use in my intermediate to advanced class. It's over 800 pages. Now, this is the book that if you already know a good deal about Excel and you know Excel has the capability of solving your problem, but you just aren't quite sure how to make it do that, this book will give you quick answers and get you on down the road. Well, Mr. Excel hasn't been left behind when it comes to the YouTube presence. He has about 1,600 videos, I think. I forget exactly how many. He's a little bit behind Mike Gervin, but Mr. Excel started doing his videos on YouTube long, long ago, so he has plenty over there as well. Great resource through YouTube. All right, what I really wanted to do in this video is just give you an example of some of the kinds of things that Excel is capable of doing, and then how I'm going to show you how to do it very, very efficiently. I'm going to build a sheet here, and we're going to have employee names going down the column A, and then we're going to have the months January through December going across row 1. Well, Excel is very intuitive, and usually it can guess what you're trying to do. Here's the word employee 1. There's a square box right here, and if I float on that square box, you'll see that my pointer becomes a black plus sign. That means that's a fill handle. So I'm going to click with my left mouse button and drag downward, and then it begins to give me a tooltip and tell me you are now filling this in with new names. It's employee 10, 11. I'm going to go down to employee 25. I've gone a little beyond. I'll back up, and there's employee 25. So I'm going to now go back up and fill January through December. I could roll the mouse wheel up, I could drag the vertical scroll bar up, but a good keyboard efficiency technique is to press Control with one finger and the Home button with the other. Control Home will always take you to cell A1. Now I'd like to fill January all the way over to December. Excel is smart enough to know that if you're wanting to fill and you have the word January, you're probably wanting to fill in the months, and you already begin to see that it's doing just that. That's November. Now when I release, I have December. So we've got our months filled in. I'd like for this to look a little bit better. I'd like for that to be aligned in the center, so I'll click on the Align Center button, and then I'd like that in the middle of the cell, so I'll fill it, or put it to the middle of the cell. And I like a little color on this sheet to make it pop off the page a bit better. The fill bucket is here, and I can hit the drop down and choose the color I like. With Excel 2010 and 2007, you get a preview of the formatting that you're about to put in place. That looks good to me. All right, now I have a little comment that I've put in here to myself just to remind me to demonstrate the Format Painter tool. Let's say I really like this format, align center, align middle, and I like this color, and I want to apply that same thing over here. Well, this, using the Format Painter, allows me to not have to remember what went into making this format. So I select the cell that contains the format I like. I'm going to click the Format Painter tool, and now my pointer becomes a brush, and that brush contains the format that is in that cell. So I'm going to click and hold down and drag all the way down to employee 25, and I'll let go. And so now these cells are aligned center, aligned middle, and they contain that color of fill. We may as well put that same fill right in there, so I'll need to reapply my Format Painter, and I'll click on the word Imp Name. So now my first row and my first column are properly formatted. What I'd like to do next is put some numbers associated for employee 1 for the month of January, a number for employee 4 for the month of May, and so on and so on. So I'm going to select the cells that coincide for employee 1 in January all the way down to employee 25 and December. So now we have the region selected, and this is my active cell. Now the formula that I want to put is called a rand between function, and what rand between does is it gives me random numbers between a floor and a ceiling, so a low number and a high number. So equals, all formulas have to start with the equals. I'm looking for rand, and as soon as I press the R, Excel provides me with a tool tip, and it helps, or it's attempting to help me choose a formula or a function, A, N, D, and now you see we have it whittled down to two different functions, rand or rand between. I'd like rand between, so I'm just going to hit my down arrow. I'm going to hit tab, and let's just pretend I'm not familiar with rand between, but I do think it's the one I want. The F sub X button right up here will give you more explanation about this function. So I'll click it, and now here are the necessary arguments for that function. And the cursor is currently in a box called bottom. Down here is an explanation of what it's looking for. Bottom is the smallest integer rand between will return. Alright, I would like the smallest number for that to return to be 25. Now I'll press tab to jump me to the next field, which is the top. And then here we see top is explained as the largest integer rand between will return. So we'll say, let's make this thing return us numbers ranging from 25 to 125. Alright, so at this point I'll hit OK. And now then I'm going to fill this value down the first column. A double click on the fill handle sent that formula all the way down to employee 25. Now I'm going to fill it across to the M column, because if you'll recall, the M is where the month of December is. So I'll fill this over and it will fill in my rand between function all the way over. So that looks pretty good. I'd also like these numbers to take on a currency mode. Well, what people usually do is they fiddle and fumble with their mouse, and then they come up and they try to hit this tiny little target of a dollar sign. A much simpler way to do that is Control-Shift held down at the same time, and then the number 4 on the main body of the keyboard. And when I say the main body, I'm just trying to distinguish between the number pad off to the right of most keyboards or the numbers that run across the top of the keyboard. So again, that's Control-Shift held down at the same time, and then tap the number 4 on the main body of the keyboard. So now we have number format. Now I would like to have these numbers lacking the 2 zeros behind the decimal. So we need to bring up our format cells dialog box. Usually people will right click or they'll fumble around and look for an area up on the ribbon that will allow you to control that. A much better way to do that is Control 1, and that brings up the format cells dialog box. I'd like to have no numbers behind the decimal point, and I'd also like to have borders on all of my table that I've generated so far. But I do want borders around the months, and I'd like borders around the employees. Well, what people would normally do is make a new selection, click here, and then drag down to get everything. But by far a better way to do that is to use the keyboard shortcut of Control and asterisk. And I'm using the asterisk over on the number pad. You could use the asterisk above the number 8, but a simpler way to do it is Control and asterisk. And now you see I have this entire range selected, and that's what Control asterisk does, is it selects the range. A new feature that was put into effect with Excel 2007 is the idea of using the ribbon. And you can pick up on certain keyboard shortcuts by using the Alt button. As soon as I pressed the Alt button, that brought up an F that coincides with the File ribbon, the H that coincides with the Home ribbon, and so on and so on. I'm after borders, and borders are right here. So I need the H or the Home ribbon. So after I press H or Alt, I'll press H, and then I see I need the B for border, and I would like all borders. I'd like all the borders to be filled in, inside and outside. So now I press A, and I have borders all the way around. Let me show you how quickly that can be done. If this is something you do on a regular basis, this is something you're going to remember. I'm going to Control Z. That's another very important keyboard shortcut, and that undoes your last action. Control Z. Now I'm going to do Alt H B A, and we have borders around the whole range. Alright, now you'll recall we put in the rand between function. Rand between is known as a volatile function, and volatile just means that the thing recalculates every time you turn around. And one way you can make a volatile function recalculate is to press F9. I'm pressing F9 repeatedly, and these formulas are recalculating every time. That can be a bit of a nuisance, or sometimes it doesn't matter at all. But I would like to remove the formulas but keep the values that I have in this cell. That's done very, very easily. Again, I'm going to select the entire range by hitting Control asterisk. I'm going to copy it by doing Control C, and now we can see the marching ants around the entire border or the entire area of the table. Now I'm ready to paste. I'm going to press the right control button on my keyboard, and the right control button is just to the left of your right control button. Maybe it's better to say that the right click button is 3 buttons over to the right of your space bar. It's kind of an odd button and very, very seldom used. So I'm pressing it, and it brings up a list of right click menu commands, and the item that I'm after is I would like to paste just the values that I've copied. Remember, these are formulas that randomly generate numbers. Well, I would like to freeze those numbers and turn them into values and make them to where they're not formulas anymore. If I click this, it'll just be a regular paste. If I click this, it will paste the values, and that's just what I'm after. We don't really see anything change, but now when I press F9, these numbers don't change anymore. So now we have static values that aren't going to change. Alright, so now what I'd like to do is to get my pointer, or actually I'd like to select this cell and put a new column header here called Employee Totals. I could click here. I try to make my people as less mouse dependent as I possibly can. Now, a quick and easy way to get my selection from this cell over to here is to use a combination of the Control and the up arrow button. And you'll see that sent me to the end of this range. It went all the way to June. Now I'm going to go Control and right, and it sent me to the end of this range. The selection's now on December. Now I'll just do a simple right arrow, and I'll type in EMPLOYEE totals and hit enter, and then Excel intuitively knew that this was a column header, and it adopted the same format that had been put on the other cells. So I'm going to go back up to employee totals. I want to copy that, Control C, and then I'm going to go to the far left, so Control left arrow. Now then A1 is the active cell. Now I want to go Control down. Now then A26 is the active cell, and I want to go down one more row. So I simply hit the down arrow, and I want to paste what I had formerly copied. So it's Control V. So now we have employee totals down there. I don't really want employee totals. I'd like to have monthly totals. So I'm going to put this cell into edit mode, and you do that by pressing the F2, and you see that the cursor's flashing inside that cell. I want to get rid of the word employee, so I'll press my up arrow, and I need to go right, and now I want to select the word employee, so Control Shift and left arrow will select that word. So now all I have to do is put in monthly, M-O-N-T-H-L-Y, and enter. So now we have monthly totals there. So now it's time to actually generate the formulas that are going to give me the monthly totals. So I'm going to go up with the up arrow, and then I'm going to go over one. Now here's the first place I want to get a monthly total. I could put monthly totals in each one of these one at a time, or I could even put a monthly total here and then fill it across, but here is a better way. I'm going to press Shift with one finger and then the right arrow with the other. So I'm now at January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So now then that full range is selected. And the quick and easy way to get a sum generated is to press Alt with one finger and the equal key with the other. The equal key that I'm speaking of is just to the left of the backspace key. So Alt equals, and just that fast we've got our monthly totals. Now I'd like to do the same thing for the employee totals. So I need to go up, and I did that by doing Control up. Now I want to go over all the way to the employee total column header, so it's Control and right, and then we need to come down one, and then in order to select the range of the 25 employees, I'll do Control, Shift, and down arrow. Oops, a little too fast. Make that Shift and down arrow, and then up just a bit. Now we're ready to enter our formula. Alt equals. And so now we have totals for our months and our employees. Now I'm going to take myself to the bottom of this column to get a grand total. So it's control down, and I need to come down one more, and I'll get a grand total. So Alt equals, and you can see the marching ants. We have totaled the employees. I'll hit enter, and so the employee total is 23,037. Next, we want to get a monthly total to see if it equals 2307. So I'm going to press Alt equals, and at this time Excel really doesn't know what we want to total. It assumes we want to total in 27. That's not the case. We would like to total from here all the way over to here. So I'm going to take my up arrow and go up. I'm sorry, I need to take my up arrow and go, actually I need to take my left arrow. I'll go left, and now I'll begin to press shift and extend the range. And you can see in the cell the range is growing. Now, it's going to sum the range from B27 to M27. That is correct. I'll hit enter, and we see that those two totals do agree. So we know our formulas are in good shape. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete this, and I think I will I'll leave the rest of that in place. Next thing I want to do is show you the table feature that's been incorporated starting in Excel 2007. And there's a lot of things the table feature can do. The main thing I want to show you is how it really helps sorting. So with any cell in the entire range selected, I'm going to press Control and T, and the Create Table dialog box comes up. All it's doing is asking two things. Do you have headers? Which we do, and also did it select the correct range? Marching ants are your indicator, and so it looks like it got it correct. I'll hit OK, and so it formats the table according to a specific style. You can change that if you want. It'll even give you a preview of some different ones. I think I'll go with that, and then while I'm here, I think I'm going to make this a little easier to read. And I'll go to home, and we'll hit that A, and so now this can be read a little bit better. The main thing I wanted to show you here, though, is it also puts some sorting options or some filtering options above. So I'll hit the drop down here, and if we want it to sort the smallest to the largest, we'll find out in this case the smallest producing salesperson here. And here we see employee 24 had totals of 664, which is the smallest. And now we'll go the opposite direction. We'll sort largest to smallest, and we see that employee 9 had the largest production. Now then, sometimes the filtering drop downs can be a bit of a nuisance, or maybe you just don't want to have that ability anymore. You can convert this back to a range. Again, make sure you have any cell selected within the range. A new ribbon has occurred since we've turned that into a table. You see a table tools ribbon has appeared, so I'll click on that, and one of the commands is to convert this entire thing into a range. I'll click on that. It's going to ask me if I'm sure I want to do that, and I'll say yes. And so now this is just a normal range. It's a regular set of data in Excel, and we no longer have the ability to sort or filter this unless we wanted to go back and turn it back into a range. I think I'm going to let that do it for the moment. We've covered a lot of info. If this information is interesting to you, please give me a call, or you can even print some of my dirty dozen of keyboard efficiency shortcuts. I covered most of these, maybe not all of them in this particular video, but if you master these dirty dozen, more or less, keyboard efficiency shortcuts, you'll really learn to dominate Excel.